Before the Ranger Creed is recited by a formation of Rangers at any ceremony, you will always hear the narrator say this: "Will all Rangers, past and present, please join us as we recite the Ranger Creed." Every Ranger will stand, and as they say those 6 stanzas, they are transformed back to a time when they had the pleasure and the burden of this brotherhood. That feeling is hard to describe. However, it's one that never leaves you. It's a connection that spans the globe and can be reignited when you hear the phrase, "Hey, Ranger, what battalion you from?" Amongst this formation, there are Rangers that stand out. They are legends of this elite organization, and when their names are spoken, people instantly have a story and for a moment relive it. Legend of the 75th podcast wants to capture those feelings and those stories. We want to ensure that these legends' triumphs and sacrifices never fade away. So sit back with your favorite adult beverage and listen to the stories from the legends of the 75th. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Legend of the 75th. Couple housekeeping notes just kind of before we get started. If you have not switched over to Red Circle, let me tell you, you are missing out. Cancel your Red Circle membership. If you need help, reach out to me. I'll show you how to do it. Get over onto Patreon. There's a lot more benefits there. There's discount codes. There's affiliate codes over there. There's a community over there. Plus, you can get access to videos and the documentaries that we're releasing on there, and vaccine access to a lot of different stuff. So I got it. Red Circle, tried and true. It's where we started. Understandable, but come on, get with the modern times. Get on over to Red Circle and let's go. So I have the absolute honor. This has been an episode that I've wanted to do for a long time. And the reason is because some of the most fulfilling conversations I've had as a leader have been with regimental psychologists. When we talk about the mindset of a Ranger, it is a thing that probably will be explored and will be talked about for generations to come. And I don't think anybody will ever truly understand it, except for my wife. I asked her, I said, "Hey, I'm about to go sit down and talk about the psychology of Ranger." And she very pointedly looked at me and she said, "It's easy." She said, "Bat shit crazy." I was like, okay, there we go. There we go. So we can wrap up the episode. My wife has spoken. We're all fucking crazy as shit. And, there we go. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, I have the absolute honor of sitting down with he's separated as a major, Jeremy Noble. He's a licensed psychologist. He got his PhD in counseling psychology from the University of Southern Mississippi in 2014. In 2016, he came over and he was a command psychologist for the 75th Ranger Regiment. In that, he did, some of the the personnel selection, also executive coaching and leader development. And you were over there in regiment for 5 years, or was it 6? Or I can't remember.
Yeah, it was like 5.5.
Yeah. And now he works in the capacity, not only running his own business, which we'll talk about when we get into that in the episode, but he also works as a government contractor in the same capacity for special operations. So still very involved, still talking, still understanding this problem set and this freaking twisted thing that is the Rangers and the mindset. So we're going to dive into not only his career and why he decided to get into this, but some of the finer points of the Ranger mind. And we prepared a lot for this episode, and we've also reached out and gotten some questions from the community that we'll dive into this episode. So, sir, it's an absolute honor to sit down with you. How you doing today?
I'm good, Mike. Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So was there anything, right before we kind of start, at the beginning, I always ask a guest, in that introduction, was there anything that was kind of spurred when I was reading through the introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned the tradition of reciting the Ranger Creed and saying, "Hey, past, present Rangers, please stand up." So I actually had that experience for the first time as a past Ranger recently. So I was at a change of command ceremony, and it was one of those things where they said, "Hey, we're gonna recite the Ranger Creed, and Rangers past and present stand." And I stood up and recited the creed, and man, you talk about that prideful, patriotic feeling coming back. That's the first time I've done that since gosh, I left regiment in 2021. And so I was actually kind of surprised that I still remembered the creed, which was a pleasant surprise because I worried there for a minute.
Yeah.
You saying that, I mean, that is a very recent memory that was very powerful and important. So yeah.
Yeah, it's different. It's very different looking out, from the outside in. and you see guys, and you see how they stand, and they stand taller, even if they're older, like it doesn't matter. They'll get out of their wheelchair, and now they're standing and they're reciting that Ranger Creed. And, there's probably that sliver of a moment that they, are thinking about, who they used to be and what they used to do. And they're standing taller for that moment. So it's definitely kind of a unifying fabric that,
Yeah.
that a lot of us
Yeah.
tie us back to.
Yeah, totally. And what's funny is, so I had this experience when I was still active duty, when I was still at regiment. I used to go to Afghanistan twice a year.
Okay.
There were short trips. It was like a month, 2 months max. But I would go over, and one of the things I would do is I'd always stop by the jock and just kind of check in with folks and stuff. My main mission over there was like partner force assessment selection kind of stuff. And I would always I'd go into the jock, I'd go to the second floor, and I'd always kind of look down and just kind of observe everyone. And I always had this moment of pride, because everybody out there, I had a hand in helping select them into the
Mm,
organization, right?
yeah.
So like I could see all these folks that I'd had interviews with and that I knew a little bit about, and I'd seen them go through RASP, and it was just, I don't know, like what it reminds me of is, I don't know if you've ever heard the story of NASA when they were trying to get a man on the moon.
Mm,
And I don't remember who it was. Some VIP was visiting, and there's like a janitor walking by, and
mhm,
they're and
yeah.
they're they're like, "Hey, what do you do here?" And he says, "I
Mm,
help get a man on the moon, sir." And so it was it's that kind of feeling, like I was never going to be a guy going out on target, as much as I tried. um, and but like that was my contribution, was to be able to kind of help select the right people into the organization. And so I experienced that, like I said, every time I go to Afghanistan. I felt like that a little bit the other day when I'm at that change of command.
mm,
And what's interesting is that, like, all the guys that were, platoon sergeants or platoon leaders, whenever I was, in the unit, now they're like becoming the first sergeants, and they're moving
yeah.
up, and it's wild. But it's also, I'm very prideful to see them develop. And it's almost like, too, that they should be moving into these positions. I mean, there are guys that are CSMs now that it's like that's the right person for the position. These are exceptional human beings, and so it's almost like, the right thing is happening, like, like a just world kind of thing. And so it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of good around that. And so, yeah, yeah. So that was just kind of a
Yeah,
heartfelt moment for me.
yeah. There's like three different questions about this is gonna be an awesome episode. I'm so freaking excited. There's so many things here. Um, so the first one, you know, as a leader, like I get it. Okay, you're going out on target, terrible idea. You're one in a million. There's only one regimental psych. Like totally understand that. But I also wonder if that would have been helpful.
Hmm.
And what I mean is like you actually seeing what these guys are doing. It's a crapshoot. You might go out, it might be a dry hole, like who cares, but like if it was something, and seeing the violence of action and
Yeah.
seeing how they communicate, like I almost kind of go, man, that actually might have been really good for the psychologist. Because
Mhm.
it's just like anything else. It's like theory,
Yeah.
what theory is one thing, and there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to discuss. But when you witness something and you see it and you experience it, because here's what I'll tell you is, you know, and we've talked about it on the podcast, before that 1 minute call, like the energy transformation in those helicopters, you can feel it. Everybody can feel it. Like it's palatable. Like you actually experiencing that and going, whoa, these dudes do this all the time. And then seeing them on target and how they communicate and everything they're doing, that might have actually been very beneficial. I totally get it. Not a good idea. There's too much liability there, but it might have
Mhm.
actually been a good idea for you to do it. Just saying.
Yeah.
And live fires are great, but live fires are still different at the end of the
Yeah, yeah, you're preaching to the choir here. I definitely wanted to
day.
go.
Well,
And what's wild is I actually had secured a slot, for lack of a better
yeah,
phrase.
see, yeah, yeah, yeah.
There was there was a commander who I'd spoken to him the summer of 2019, I believe, or maybe it was
Uh-huh.
the winter of 2019. And he told me like the next summer when I was coming back out, he was going to be out there and he was going to be in a position where they were, they're going out on target.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, would you ever take a psych out? And he says, absolutely. And I'm like, awesome, here we go, we're going to do it. And then COVID hit. And
Ah,
when COVID
yeah,
hit, they turned off all the partner force stuff, so I no longer had a
yeah,
reason to go over, and then all the other stuff that happened.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, but like selfishly, man, I was so disappointed, and I'm still disappointed. And then based on what you just said, makes me even more disappointed
I'm
that I
sorry.
was not able to
I'm
do
sorry.
that. But also, like, if you would have seen me in Ranger School, you would have known that the liability would have been for everybody else, because yeah, there's a reason why I became the psych, and I didn't take the path that you guys did, and I'm became fully aware of that whenever I started going through things like Ranger School and SEER School and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I could go back in time, I probably would have had that conversation with that commander earlier, like a year before, and then I think I probably could have had that experience.
Well, if I'd have been the regimental sergeant major, I would have, I would have told you,
I appreciate that.
and I would have babysat you.
I appreciate it.
No, I just, yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I totally get it, and it makes sense. But I think there might have been something learned there,
Mm,
and we saw that, and I have examples of this. Early in the GWAT, we would take out guys that controlled ASR or ISR that flew up
mm,
in the helicopter, flew up in the
mhm,
planes and everything else. Like we would take different individuals out. Not, yeah, sure, guys wanted to go out. Everybody wants to go out, right? There's no doubt about that. But so they could see things from our perspective. And it was
yeah,
huge, And then from this perspective, when we talk about mindset, we talk about the psychology. I think it would have been beneficial. So,
yeah.
but hey, you never know what the future holds. There might be a whole nother war, so maybe you get your shot.
That's true. And I separated, which means if I want to get back in, I can do that. So we'll,
There you
I'll
go.
keep my
Oh
ears
yeah.
open for that.
Yep. And we're gonna need lots of psychologists. So the other question I wanted to ask you is, and I know, kind of talking about deployments right here, but and maybe we're skipping ahead a little bit, but that's okay. We'll build our way back eventually. Did you kind of, as you did this more and more, you talked about it, you said, that guy being the regimental sergeant major, that guy being a sergeant major, that guy being a first sergeant, did you kind of start to recognize attributes that made you go, that guy's going to be somebody of predominance in the Ranger Regiment and leadership?
Yeah, I'll answer that in a couple of ways, Mike.
Okay.
The short answer is yes. I've got a couple of people pegged right now that I think are going to eventually be RSMs,
Okay.
and that's just purely my
Yeah. No, I
internal
mean,
prediction, right?
yeah.
But in my opinion, the um, the Rangers that are the ones that are the most elite and the most successful ones. I don't know if you've ever heard of. I think it's Patrick Lencioni. I think he's like a consultant. He wrote a book back in like 2016, some leadership book. But he's the one that coined the
Looking up.
term humble, hungry, and smart. Like those are the three
I've heard
things.
that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that came from him, I believe. And so Rangers that I've seen be the most successful are the ones that have those three things, and I can break them down. So uh, Lencioni, when he talks about smart, he doesn't necessarily mean like IQ smart. He means more like emotional intelligence smart. So
Mm,
somebody who's really interpersonally savvy, and I when I say it, I mean both, because when you look at uh, predictors of success across organizations, just in general, IQ is one of those higher uh, predictors of success, just as a single variable. It only explains like 13% of what makes somebody successful, right? It's small, but it is absolutely there. And I have looked at data with Rangers as it pertains to IQ. When I was regimental psych, I reached out to leaders and I said, hey, tell me about like rank order your subordinates best to worst, and then who would you hire back or not if given the opportunity and stuff. And um, IQ was a clear differentiator in those groups. The top performers were ones that, and when I say IQ, I mean specifically like what we call performance intelligence or fluid intelligence. So that's things like, how quickly you can process information. So think like CQB, like how quickly can you react? Can you think in second, third order effects? Can you problem solve? Those types of things, right? So IQ, just general cognitive intelligence is one thing. But the emotional intelligence is important too. So like how persuasive and influential are you? Like how much do people want to lead you or want you to lead them? Um, the hungry piece is that like unquenchable thirst to be better, and not only to like be better yourself, but to like better your environment, to develop those around you and leave a place better than you found it. And then the last one, in my opinion, this is the piece that differentiates those that go on to be the CSMs or the RSMs, and that's the humble piece, the humility piece, and that is focusing on the team more than yourself, and that's somebody who's open-minded. They're like they reach out, they ask questions, they ask for feedback, and so like I've seen a handful, more than a handful of leaders in regiment embody those attributes very, very well, and I've seen those things help them continue to kind of rise to positions of authority and of prominence, and so yeah, so I said I would answer it in two ways. So one is yes, I think I've been able to see that. But two, being a psychologist is a blessing and a curse. I also know that like we just period human beings, we suck at predicting the future. Like we're awful. And like psychologists, the only difference with us is that we know we're awful, and so I'm reminded of a book called Super Forecasters, and
That's
so
a good
this
book.
this
Yeah.
book, you've read it, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so you remember Philip Tetlock, the guy that would host these forecasting competitions from the 80s to the early 2000s. He had like 28,000 predictions that he accrued over the years, and he wanted to see like how good are people at predicting the future. And what he found is people are not very good at predicting the future. But what was really interesting about that is that the people that were the worst at it were the ones that were the experts, were the ones that were like known as being really like profound economics experts or whatever. And so that was, and that was because they were like overconfident and they weren't willing to kind of change direction if they needed to, right? So I say all that because I recognize that like I'm an expert in my field and I can like fall into that overconfidence kind of
Yep.
bias. And so, I don't want to sit here and say like, oh yeah, I can tell you who's going to be the next,
Yep.
RSM or whatever just by looking at him. I can't.
Yeah.
But I have noticed some attributes that seem pretty consistent.
Well, I think to, parlay that with leadership, I think it's not necessarily, this is just my thought, on what you said, which I love that book, Super Forecasters, talking about that. It's not even that we're bad at predicting the future. And what's the problem is we can't quantify and we can't even understand free will.
Hmm.
You have no idea the decision somebody's going to make in an emotional state or whatever it's going to be. Like that's why we train the way we train, is because we're trying to remove that free will. Like I don't want to say we're like becoming dogmatic and we want robots. We want critical thinkers, but we don't want them doing something that's just out of the norms. So
Yeah.
my point is like okay, let's say right now, and I'm not asking you to name names, but we predicted all three, hey, these guys are going to be the sergeant majors in the 75th Ranger Regiment, maybe the Army, maybe even the regimental sergeant major.
Hmm.
And then we look at it in 5 years, why none of them were. it probably won't be any reason other than they decided to get out of the Army.
Yeah.
They had a zipper malfunction, alcohol, mental, whatever it might be, all things that are a result of free will. Like, it's not because they weren't a great leader. It's not because they didn't have the potential and the ability. All those things, that's probably won't be the reason. It's going to be because of one of those other reasons, and
Yeah.
and I mean, shit, doing it for 25 years, like you would try to predict, okay, this guy's going to be a team leader. I'm going to put him here. He's going to be a squad leader, boom, 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 boom. He's going to go through. And then you're like, oh shit. Well, crap. None of that worked out because he decided he wanted to get out and be a cop. He got, this X, Y, and Z, the next regimental sergeant major that's taken over for masters. Like, I love him. I've known him since, the day he, put on the Ranger uniform. But I would have never predicted he would have been the regimental sergeant major. Not that he didn't have the potential, not that he didn't have the ability. He's one of the most intelligent, hardworking, humble, just amazing warfighters that I've ever met in my life. Yeah, I love that guy, but I wouldn't have predicted it. Just there would have been other guys I would have picked,
Yeah.
and I'm not, but he is going to be, and he's the absolute right guy to do it, because of all those things that we talked about. So, it's one of those fascinating things, but it's really cool to kind of hear it from your expert mind, because I think that's, if you could remove the element of that free will or those, those variables of straight voltage, you'd probably nail it. It'd probably be 100% accurate. Outside of some catastrophic event that none of us can predict.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. The problem with predicting human behavior is that like there's almost an infinite amount of variables that go into it.
Yep.
And like you said, like there's a quote that always stuck with me, that you're always one decision away from a completely different life. And
Yes.
I think that's true with this too, with trying to predict human behaviors, that everybody is one decision away
Yep.
from a completely different route. And
Yep.
and as every day goes on, you have like thousands of different routes and different lives that you could live. And so yeah, we just don't have, like, there aren't enough people on the planet to have a large enough sample size to really be able to do that,
Yeah.
but doesn't mean we
Yeah.
shouldn't try.
Yeah, I want to come back to that. And one thing I forgot to cover real quick. So I'm gonna break us real quick at the 20-minute mark, and then we'll dive back in. So all this
Okay.
is like the preview that we release on YouTube, and then the rest is for the exclusive members. So I forgot to cue you up for that. So Corey will edit this part out. Hey everybody. There you
Okay.
go. No, you're good. Nope, you're good. Yeah, you were kind of, I
Yeah,
guess.
sorry about that. You're good.
No, you're good. Don't worry about it. That's why we got Corey. He keeps us all honest. Hey, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Hey, if you want to hear the rest of the episode and the incredible journey that Jeremy Noble has, and just some amazing insights that he has into the mindset of the Rangers, please head over, become an exclusive member, and unlock the full episode along with all the other 80 plus episodes. Shit, we might be at 90 episodes that we currently have behind the paywall. So head over there, and all your efforts and all your contributions helps us preserve Ranger history and do all the projects that we're doing.